for a few seconds. Let yourself feel the kind of emotions you're going through and everything, so that it just passes away on its own for some time. Try something to distract yourself, but it is absolutely okay to feel the kind of failure, the kind of emotions you're feeling, to let it go. Other than, taking the other route, like just bottling up and just going on and on and on and on till you reach a stage of complete burnout and shutdown. So it's always better just to take a step back. Probably you had plans for the day, but this is something important, something wrong has happened, feel it, go through it, and then kind of look for your support system, network around, like as you said some time back, look for your friends, look for your family, and then, take it step by step. It is not necessary that everything has to go according to your plan. There are many a times in our lives when, you plan everything for a long term, and then suddenly it's like, just stopped. Everything just stops. There is a failure in that. But if you see failure as a redirection towards something different, probably that will help. It does not happen immediately at that point. It takes some time till you can outgrow. But what is most important is identify your emotions and feel them. And only then you'll be able to let go of things. This is the only thing which I would like to add to what Audrey has said.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And, resilience has all got to do with how we bounce back and, what it is that, how do we deal and handle with, setbacks in our lives. And these setbacks come to teach us something. I see a setback as an opportunity to learn something, just to add that. All right, so I'm very mindful of time. I've just restarted recording our meeting as well, and I'm going to kick off with training. We will take a break every hour. We will take a 5-minute break, a really short break, just a quick bio break. The reason why is because we only have 3 hours together, and 2.5 or half is already gone, so I've got 2.5 left for training. And so when we do go on a break, just some housekeeping, don't exit the meeting, just keep your camera off and mute yourself. And then just check 5 minutes and then come back on, because irrespective of your time zone. And then I do want to encourage you the following. This training is where you really need to activate active listening. I did not put all the bullet points and all the things that I'm going to be discussing on the slides. I really want you to listen, engage, and I'm going to be asking you some questions about your own experiences, your thoughts. Please use the chat function. If you really feel on your heart that you want to speak, please use your virtual raise hand. It will move you to the top of my screen so that I know, that you have something that you'd like to share with us. We do encourage that. So you can use the chat function, or you can raise your hand and share information with us. All right, so let me just share my screen. So just one moment while I share my screen here. And just need to swap the presenter view. You should be able to see my screen right now. And I'm just going to open my chat box so that I can see you in the chat box too. Perfect. All right, so thank you to all of you for having registered for self-care and professional resilience. I'm Cindy Hancock from Flops Training, and I decided to do this pro bono training because I do feel that it's in lieu of Women's Month, International Women's Month. I wanted to give something back, and something that's been on my heart quite a lot, and that I speak a lot about to my friends. And I mean, Lizelle, all the memes and the quotes and the things that we share, Megan, the conversations that we have, Chanelda, the moments that we've shared as well, that self-care and professional resilience is really an important thing in our lives. Now, what is it? So just a statement here. Professional resilience is our individual capacity to thrive in demanding situations. Let's face it, we all have demanding schedules, life gets busier, multiple roles that we play. The choices we make when responding to difficult situations, and also our attitude and willingness to act to act, to demonstrate resilience. So working together, we can support the professional resilience of our colleagues and of ourselves. As Audrey mentioned, and Dr. Harbour mentioned, networking. That's why networking is so important, that you have a group of people around you who really can uplift you and carry you in times when you are not your strong self, but also share their light with you, you know, when there's a tough situation. So I found this beautiful quote, and I thought it was really very relevant to what we are going to be doing now. And it says here, the oak fought the wind and it was broken. The willow bent when it must and it survived. So for me, that is a lot to do about resilience. We need to bend. We're not broken, we bend by, you know, life's experiences, etc. But, you know, be like a willow, move with the wind, move with the situations that are come up around you. All right, so in the following section, we've got 3 sections. The first one, we're going to offer you as a woman a deeper understanding of the concepts of self-care and professional resilience. Now, I want to ask you, and this is our first one where I want to ask you to either raise your hand and share, or you can type in the chat function. But what is your definition of self-care for yourself? How would you define self-care? So as I said, you're welcome to raise your hand if you want to share verbally, or you are welcome to use the chat function to share with us. How do you define self-care? What is that definition for you? Feel free to type it in the chat. I'm going to give you a moment to just think about it for a split second there. Here we go. Michelle, resting when you are tired. Absolutely. That is so important. Really taking that time to rest. For Audrey, when you've had enough sleep. Excellent. For me, the definition of self-care is to really be self-aware of my own burnout meters, my own exhaustion meters. From Amadou, so I'm with that, sorry. Self-care is a way to give yourself more attention in a difficult situation, the way we deal with emotional challenges, absolutely. For Dr. Hawa, setting priorities, not everything deserves attention, absolutely. Urgent, important. You know, we need to, everything is always urgent, but we need to define, you know, where we are at. Bessie, taking care of my entire well-being. So taking my time to feel good and well. I really like that. And I love the language of your entire well-being. Thank you so much all for sharing. Now, for me, self-care refers to activities and practices that we can engage in on a regular basis to reduce that stress, maintain and enhance short and long-term health and well-being. Of course, self-care is very necessary for you to be effective and success and gain success in honoring your professional and personal commitments. And it describes the practice or the rituals that we use to reduce stress. So what rituals do you have in place to reduce stress? What practices do you have to cope with challenges at work? Or enhance your subjective sense of well-being and replenish your energy levels. How do you replenish your energy levels? I see there's a whole lot here in the chat function. Relaxing and stepping aside from my duties for an allotted time. I like that very much, Gloria. Resting as a way to revive, not as just you just, you know, or not you deserve to feel happy. Absolutely, and then we've got here, how do we take care of ourselves when our mental health is at stake? Such an important question. Mental health, of course, is one of the hot topics in terms of discussion. We are going to work through some points in terms of mental health. Very important to check in with your mental health. If you are not feeling okay, Just remember that rest is not earned. You are allowed to rest. You don't have to overdo work and, you know, push yourself to the edges of the flames of burnout before you take a break and check in with yourself. All right. So what is the importance of self-care? Now, in this section, we will look further into the importance of self-care, and it is now widely accepted that both self-care is a generative process, in that these practices are developed when the going is good, that they can support us, bolster us, mitigate the impact of stress and challenges. You know, those challenges, those times when we are stretched in our working roles and life in general. And often those attracted to work in the health and the social care, maybe teaching, whatever caring role that you may be in, you know, we are motivated by wanting to help other people. However, the reality of stress, competing demands, and limited resources really can often be demotivating, and it can create this disillusionment. So the necessary skills required to future-proof ourselves from developing vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, burnout, are really rarely understood at the commencement of our professional career path. So we don't know what we don't know. You know, at the beginning of our career, we are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, we've got all this energy, we want to do good, we want to push in as much energy as we can. But really these new, you know, people who are new in a career or in a job are offered the depth in advice on how to meet your stakeholders' needs without neglecting your own. So important that we don't neglect ourselves. So let's take a look at the impact of self-care and the importance of self-care. Now, you're welcome to take a screenshot of this, but also know that I will be sharing the PowerPoint and the recording with you. What is important here is that this diagram offers us two different trajectories for an individual entering into a support work career. So wherever we are in a supportive role, so you can think of situational leadership. Sometimes we're delegating, sometimes we're coaching, sometimes we're directing, you know, etc. So when we're in a supporting role, it's important that we have a look at these two different trajectories. Now, the upper trajectory, we see people who enter the work often with this lifesaver or rescuer mindset, without having developed a skill to support their own well-being. And this often creates this imbalance of giving to others, which outweighs giving and nurturing to ourselves. Now, the second trajectory, the one at the bottom, we see a support worker. I put here the language of support workers. So anyone in a supporting role, whenever you are in a supportive role, who is self-aware, who's observing and turning into their own needs and well-being in order to offer support to others from a more robust and resilient body and mind. And ultimately, that is where we want to operate from, somewhere and that space where we are confident in our own self-care and we practice our own self-care. Now, the difference between these two trajectories is how reactive or proactive we are by addressing stresses of our work and our ability to achieve this work-life balance. It's really important to understand that by overlooking the importance of self-care, it can really lead to a poor quality of life. You can have compassion fatigue, or this reduced ability to be empathetic. You kind of become numb. You face burnout and dissatisfaction with what you are producing or with what your team members, if you're in a leadership role, maybe presenting to you. Vicarious trauma, and we're going to look at little more detail on vicarious trauma. And then also, sometimes you drop out of your chosen profession because you just cannot handle it anymore. The pressure has become too much. The stress has become too much. You've left out looking after yourself and your own mental health for such a long time that you actually need to time out and step away from what it is that you chose to do. So it would be fair to say here that these negative unintended outcomes would be far from what any person entering the profession would want to be experiencing or have envisioned as an aspiration when entering this career in their chosen field. We don't enter, our jobs or our work or careers that we are doing with a mindset of, oh, I'm going to burn out, I'm going to give too much of myself. We naturally give. We want to give the best, we want to perform, we want to be those high performers. But this can lead to burnout, and it's important that we acknowledge this for ourselves as well. So, aims of self-care. So there's often this myth that exists that self-care is an activity that we all do naturally, and it's an easy behavior to have. The reality is that self-care is really taught, and it requires a great deal of effort, self-awareness, and that insight into your own varying needs and the roles that we are required to play in our lives. And I think that's such an important point here, because do we teach our children and the next generation about self-care? I could share a little something that I do with my little girl. She's 6 now. Her name is Sarah. And I love skincare, like a skincare ritual. For me, that's cooking and skincare is a way of unwinding for me. And I invite her into my space, and I'm teaching her from little, take care of your skin, but take care of yourself. When you're taking care of yourself, you have more energy, you feel more energized, you love yourself, and that is so important. There's nothing like self-love. So we would put little masks on our faces and cucumbers on our eyes, and just have a real good bonding experience as well. But teaching her from young to take care of herself and to love herself. So do we do that enough in our lives? Question that you can answer to yourself. Now, self-care is really about the indulgences into things that make us feel good. For example, bubble baths or chocolate or skincare routines, etc. But fundamentally, self-care is also about the behaviors that cultivate a safe container that holds us in times of uncertainty. It's about those routines, the rhythm, that discipline that we have with ourselves, and the reverse about knowing when to let these go and to honor a duvet day, because your mind and spirit needs to be cocooned in a safety and a safe space away from the world. That is also okay if you need to have a duvet day. Of course, self-care is not simply about limiting or addressing those professional stresses. It's also about enhancing our overall well-being, which is so important. If we don't take care of ourselves first, you can't serve from an empty cup. Then we can't be servant leaders, for example, and give back to our community, our family, and our workplace as well. Chocolate, yay, exactly, Aubrey. Chocolate is the best. I'm more a salty snack kind of person. I enjoy the salty side of things, but a little piece of chocolate every now and again is also wonderful to have. So, aims of self-care. There are common aims to almost all self-care efforts, and these can include physical or psychological health, as we've discussed already about the mental health, managing and reducing stress. We need to honor emotional and spiritual needs. You need to connect to something in a spiritual way that really helps you in terms of being grounded, getting back into your, anchoring back into your belief system. There needs to be, honor that emotional space for yourself. Do you have any rituals that you maybe light a piece of incense or a candle, etc.? I know Lizelle sent me this beautiful picture of a little frangipani, which happened to be my favorite, one of my favorite flowers, and a candle, and that is something really special, and it nurtures and it feeds her soul. Fostering and sustaining relationships and having that work-life balance. So important, this work-life balance, especially in this fast-paced world that we live in now. Is there something, does it exist? Does work-life balance exist? Or is it a sliding scale, that where it's never almost balanced, but that the scale, tips one way or the other way? Is it more about that than work-life balance? Yes, walking in candles, absolutely. Thank you, Lizelle, for sharing. Taking care of our physical and our psychological health. Audrey was talking about reading. Read good books. Read books that are really good for your mind. Watch. Be very mindful of your sleep hygiene. Don't watch social media before you go to sleep. Your mind and that blue light that shines, your mind staying active all the time, and you're battling to fall asleep. But the first thing we do is we grab our phones and we have a look at, like a social media video or, quotes or anything like that. So think about sleep hygiene as well. And here you can use an app called, for example, called Calm, which is one I use with my daughter as well, with my son as well, and with myself. And they've got sleep stories, and they've got the adult sleep stories, the kiddie sleep stories, they've got meditative recordings as well to listen to. And all of these things can help us manage and reduce our stress. Yes, exactly, Lizelle. When we all struggle with balance. When I'm the busiest, I'm at the least time to do things that help me cope. And that's exactly the default space that we go into. But it's important to understand the holistic aspects of self-care in all of these domains that we've just mentioned. When we're neglecting one of these domains, it can reduce this robustness in that area. And this potentially is where vulnerability can manifest when we are stretched. For example, if we are neglecting our physical health, we are eating unhealthily, like Aubrey mentioned, we're not taking enough water. We are then exposed to chronic long-term stress at work, or our physical health can be compromised, despite us having good support networks and a spiritual framework that supports us. So we can't afford to neglect any one of these 5 domains that we have discussed here. So therefore, it is recommended, science and research has recommended that when we are assessing and developing our own self-care routines, we must ensure that each of these domains are equally and powerfully developed for our overall well-being. I'm loving what's coming through on the chat here. Yes, exactly. Wish I could enjoy the quiet, slow times in business more instead of worrying why it's quiet. Don't we all do that? I'm such a guilty party when it comes to that. Even when everything happens in predictable cycles, what goes up must come down. I completely agree with you. Asanas, yes, candles, cooking, shower with music, dancing, yoga. Movement is so important. I've recently started doing wall Pilates, and it has been such a good, it's a quick, maybe 20 minutes, 28 minutes, etc. during the day. I can slice that out of my day, and you just feel a lot better about yourself. For Anne, Rubik's Cube, wow, and That sounds incredible. Thanks, Audrey. You have candles on now. I think in break time, I'm going to go and get my candle and put my candle on as well. That comes from a very special place, very far away, sent with love and care. And I'm very careful, you know, like when I light it. So I think it's a good opportunity to go and light it. So, professional resiliency or resilience. We can understand that the relationship between self-care and resilience are symbiotic. Self-care enables us to be resilient and thrive in situations of high demand and pressure. As with self-care, resilience is not static. It's not a once-off activity. Often the choices we make in responding to difficult situations, such as our attitude and our willingness to act, demonstrates resiliency. So in a professional context, it is that role and the duty of everybody in that organization to support one another's resilience across the organization. And ask ourselves, do we do that? Do we support our colleagues, our peers, in terms of maintaining and establishing their own resilience? And in exploring professional resilience, it's also essential to understand what it is that makes an individual resilient. So I'm going to ask you here, you can use the chat function for me, or you're welcome to raise your hand if you want to share something. And I want what is your definition of professional resilience? What does the words professional resilience mean to you? So you're welcome to raise your hand, or you are able to type it in the chat. However, I see keeping time for yourself is to explore the creative side, which is very important. Absolutely. It is very important. Boundaries, absolutely. Boundaries are so important. Do we have enough boundaries? Adapting to situations without losing your own values, very important. Hold on to our values. And I think this ties in beautifully with boundaries and having our own boundaries in place. Be able to face burnout and deal with people with bad attitude without getting mad. Difficult to do at times because it does happen when you are triggered by something, then you react instead of responding. But yes, we need to face and deal. You know, we need to face burnout. If we are in it, we need to acknowledge it. We need to try acknowledge it before we even hit burnout. And so, what is the definition of professional resiliency? Research has shown, sorry, Daniel, we've got Blessing in the room. If you could just let him in, please. Him or her in. The most recognized definition of resilience is this ability to bounce back after adversity. And I know some of you have done the leadership training with me before, and we've spoken about resiliency here. And there's that picture of this little flower plant that's growing through a crack in a tarred road. And for me, that is resiliency. It's that ability to bounce back, you push through. And this also implies that qualities such as strength, flexibility, and adaptability are essential to support us in how we bounce back. So within this definition, there has been this exploration of looking to understand why some people are able to bounce back quicker or stronger than other people who may have experienced the same circumstances. So if we look at it from a coaching perspective, we all show up differently in the world. We all have our own way of being, our own experiences. We're looking through the lens we look at the world through is different for all of us because we've got different backgrounds, we've got different experiences. So there are several approaches to understand individual resilience. And these are separated by whether they focus on internal attributes of the person, the social environment, or a combination of the two. So maybe some notes that you can take down here. The personality or the individual characteristics in terms of professional resilience. So within this approach, resilience is seen as an innate ability to form parts of this personality. And that includes perseverance, emotional management, and awareness, optimism, this, the perspective that you have, the sense of humor. Do you have a sense of humor? Can you laugh at yourself or at a situation in a good way, not laughing at someone? Do you have self-efficiency? Do you have control over your life, or do you have a perception of control over your life? And do you have abilities to solve problems? Then we can look at the environment. So resilience, of course, is also dependent on the experiences that someone has within their environment. Therefore, external factors, for example, social support that someone receives, or access to resources. It could be therapy, it could be reading up about cognitive behavioral therapy, for example. All of these things will influence how resilient a person is, as opposed to their personality. So the external factors also play a role. And then the person environment. So resilience is a product of a person's personality in combination with the environmental influences. For example, family, your peers, your social environment, etc. So this develops the concept of resilience as a process rather than an end state. And I so agree here with the research that has shown this. And yes, Cecilia, it only takes a practice. It's about thriving, not about surviving. And how many of us are living in survival mode? We are on autopilot and we're running, and we are, just doing things automatically. So ask yourself, how can you thrive and not just survive? Also, to develop resilience, we can involve supportive relationships and resources and an environment. So cultivate that environment around you where there is supportive relationships, those good friendships, those solid friendships that you've got, with people who really understand and care without any bias. So unbiased care and support. It's also about being adaptive and flexible, and being flexible in our responses rather than this heroic feat that we may have. So applying the definition, so if we look at people who are working, I work a lot with gender-based violence, with a non-violence project foundation on sexual harassment, mobbing, bullying, etc. And because I'm their learning manager, or education and learning manager, I'm responsible for creating a lot of material. So the things that I work with, in that environment or in that sector can be taxing. So applying this definition of resilience to the gendered violence sector, professional resilience can be defined as the capacity to maintain a healthy, flexible, and responsive state. Somebody is, Henry, can you just please mute yourself? I see that you have, okay, I've muted you, no worries, because I'm picking up some background noise. And also adapting to an ever-changing demand. We've got these ever-changing demands within the environment through assessing both internal and external resources, and those relationships that support and maintain well-being. So important to have those relationships where they really help you stay grounded. Share meaningful quotes, check in, how are you doing, how's life treating you? But it's also important to note that resilience is not just about bouncing back after a challenge, a trauma, or a tragedy. It's also about personal growth after that experience. It involves developing behaviors, different thoughts and actions. How can we be different in this situation if it comes up in future? It's also about identifying and assessing appropriate resources that we need to recover from any challenges and difficulties that we may face, and then to apply any new learning from these experiences or these events that we've experienced towards our personal and professional growth and development. So important that we've got that. Henry, you are drawing on my screen. I'm not sure what is going on, but I can see you are drawing on my screen. Do you see a red line? So just be mindful of, especially if you're on mobile, what it is that you are touching. So let me just see if I can remove. Just a second. There we go. I've got the red line gone. Okay, I'm checking in. It's exactly 11 o'clock. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We can actually take a 10-minute break. I think go make some coffee, share, a moment maybe with your family, check in with them. Are they okay? Are you okay? Maybe take the time to think to yourself, where am I at in terms of my professional resiliency and my personal resiliency? How am I dealing, with difficult situations? So really maybe take some time to think, and reflect just where you are in terms of your professional resiliency. All right, so we will be back at 10 past 11 my side. So please just double check 10 minutes on your side. And when we come back, we're going to be exploring professional resiliency in terms of factors that support professional resiliency. So with that, enjoy your break. I will see you soon in 10 minutes. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just resuming the recording. What does self-compassion mean to you? Type it in the chat function, text me in the chat. You're welcome to raise your hand and share. Self-driven motivation, giving yourself a break. Absolutely, Michelle. Completely agree with you. Giving yourself a break is definitely a means of self-compassion. To be kind to yourself and yes, give grace. I'm forever sharing, do things with grace, be graceful or gracious in how you respond to something instead of reacting. Forgiveness when I learned something I didn't know when I needed it before, absolutely. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Allowing yourself to make mistakes, so important, Hawa. We are, none of us are perfect. Holding space for ourselves to make mistakes. Audrey, telling myself that I deserve the best. Absolutely, wonderful. Yes, we deserve the best. And what does the best look like, for you? For Nadia, knowing when to stop. That is such an important point, knowing when to stop. Like I said just now, that buffer that we have in place in terms of how much can we take. From Cecilia, considering how you feel in everything you do every day. Very important. Checking in with yourself. Have that barometer on yourself in terms of how much you can take. Allow myself to grow from what has happened, good or bad. Absolutely. Being understanding with yourself rather than harshly criticizing yourself when you are making mistakes. Love that, Manzo. Thank you so much. And yes, let's be more understanding and more patient with ourselves, more compassionate with ourselves. From Gloria says here to love myself by ensuring I get some rest, I get to get rid of stress and to re-energize. Absolutely. All of these things, being mindful of who I am. Man, I love that. Lady, I love that. Absolutely beautiful. I love that. Being mindful of who you are. Who are you? How do you deal with things? How do you cope with stress? How do you deal with difficult situations? So the concept of self-compassion is included in this section, as it is an important principle for us to develop alongside self-care and resilience. So they go hand in hand. It's almost like three circles. Absolutely. So there's a quote from the Buddha, and I quite like this quote, and I thought I'd share it here. And it says that compassion is that which makes the heart of the good move at the pain of others. It crushes and it destroys the pain of others. Thus, it is called compassion. It is called compassion because it shelters and embraces the distressed. Isn't that beautiful? Shelters and embraces the distressed. Beautiful quote from the Buddha. Now, having compassion for oneself is really no different than having compassion for others. To have that compassion for others, you absolutely must notice that they are suffering. Have a look around, pay attention. Compassion also involves feeling moved by other people's suffering so that your heart responds to their pain, where you can suffer with them, if I can put it in inverted commas. When this occurs, we feel warmth, we feel caring, we feel this desire to help, this suffering that a person is going through in some way. So I guess empathy here also plays a role. So having compassion also means that you offer understanding and kindness to others when they fail or make mistakes, rather than judging them. Just put yourself in that position where you may have made a mistake or you failed at something that you've done. Rather than judging yourself or judging other people, show up with kindness, with a gentleness, a softness. And then finally, when you feel compassion for another, and it's important to note that it's not pity, but you're feeling compassion for another person, it means that you realize that suffering, failure, Suffering, failure, and imperfection actually is a part of the shared human experience. And here I want to bring in Brené Brown. So you all know that you've done the leadership with me, leadership training with me, that I'm a big fan of Brené Brown. And it's that shared human experience. We are all going through experiences, different, similar, at the same time. And if we can show up for each other and really show that we can accept imperfection and our own vulnerability, leaning into our own vulnerability, that's part of the shared human experience. And then the ability to be self-compassionate, especially if you're working with a lot of people, it doesn't matter which environment it is that you, or which genre you find yourself working in. It means that you're acting the same way towards yourself when you're having a difficult time, when you fail, or you've noticed something that you don't like about yourself. Instead of just ignoring your pain, stop. Just stop and tell yourself that this is really difficult right now, and how can I care for myself in this moment? How powerful is that when we can take a moment and pause and take care of ourselves? You know, sometimes we need to take care of that inner child. You know, that you're going through something really difficult now, and it's okay. And again, I'm repeating myself here, but ask yourself, how can you care for yourself in this moment? What is it that you need? What does your soul need right now in that moment? Perhaps most importantly, having compassion for yourself means that you honor and accept your own humanness. The more open your heart to this is, and to this reality, instead of constantly fighting against it and avoiding it and saying it doesn't exist, the more you will be able to feel compassion for yourself and for your fellow humans. I see we've got some comments here in the chat. You have a quote on your slide. No, I didn't have a quote on my slide. It was you'll find it in the PDF when I share it with the instructor's notes. You'll be able to find that quote there. From Cecilia, self-compassion is putting yourself in your shoes. Exactly. We mostly think and take care of only the other people and forget about ourselves. Very true. In our daily rushes, we need to stop, pause, think about ourselves. I love that, Cecilia. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so now we get to section 2. In this section, I offer you a deeper understanding of vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, and trauma to increase people's knowledge and ability to identify the signs and risk factors. And we're going to look at a few strategies to mitigate the risk that is offered in this section, which is actually section 3, but we're already going to touch on some strategies to mitigate. So what do you believe the definition of vicarious trauma is? Please use the chat. You're welcome to raise your hand and share with me. What do you believe the definition of vicarious trauma is? And while you're typing, I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. What do you think is vicarious trauma? Without Googling, just what do you think is vicarious trauma? You're welcome to type. You can raise your hand and share your insights. Okay, nothing yet in the chat, so I'm going to continue. Vicarious trauma is also known as secondary trauma. So this could be that indirect trauma that can occur when we are exposed to difficult or disturbing images or stories secondhand. So something that we may have seen on the internet, something that you have exactly, Audrey, trauma that we imagine we did not have. Absolutely. It could be something in the newspaper. It could be in a movie. It could be in a book. It's something that perturbs you, but it's an indirect trauma, and it's secondhand. It's a secondhand trauma. And this term, it's important to note that this term was coined by Pullman and Sackvidne. And they use this term to describe the profound shifts in worldviews that occur in helping professionals when they work with individuals who have experienced trauma. So do you work with people who have experienced trauma? Can you work with people within your teams that have dealt with secondary trauma? We just switch on the news and we see floods and disasters. That is when you really feel for these people and you wish you can do something about it, that is a vicarious trauma. That is a secondary trauma experience that you are having. And it's a process within which helping professionals notice that their own beliefs about the world are altered and damaged by repeatedly being exposed to traumatic experiences. Dealing with people who are insensitive or traumatized, absolutely, completely agree with you, Lizelle. Thank you for sharing. So let's take a look at compassion fatigue. What do you think is compassion fatigue? What do you think is compassion fatigue? Have you experienced compassion fatigue? Is it something that you've noticed within someone else? Compassion fatigue. You can put it in the chat if you think you know or have an idea of what it is. I'll give you another moment. You can raise your hand if you wanted to chat. I see someone is drawing on my screen again. Please, if you would refrain from using the note button. The note button, I cannot deactivate it, but it's where you underline on things. So please be careful, especially if you're on a mobile phone. So compassion fatigue is always giving compassion to others but yourself. Yes. Pouring from an empty cup. Yes. When I feel used or overextended. Absolutely. So I know this is going to sound cold, but it's in that moment you just cannot care. Absolutely. Yes. From Hawa, overburdened yourself with care for others beyond your capacity. Yes. Understand it could mean you are tired of being compassionate. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, someone is still writing on my screen. Please refrain from writing on the screen. I would really appreciate that. Pam, it's you that's writing on the screen. Yes, it's Pam.
Somebody
Okay, if you can just please mute yourselves as well. Thank you very much. Gloria, I'm muting you because you keep unmuting. Please don't need to press the button. I've muted you now. So compassion fatigue, a metaphor that is used, a metaphor that's used to describe compassion fatigue is like a saturated sponge that is no longer able to absorb more liquid. It's full. If we replace the sponge with the compassionate person, we can envision this person who is no longer able to absorb any more because they've given so much empathy and care to other people. They are now so full, they've got no more space left. And it also refers to the emotional and physical erosion that takes place when we are unable to refuel and regenerate within that care and compassion. That the saturation point now results in this inability to be compassionate as your own cup is full and I mean your own cup is empty and you can't give anymore. You are full of holding compassion and space for others. So absolutely everything that everyone has mentioned here, absolutely correct. The indifference to appeal on behalf of suffering people, absolutely. So now let's look at burnout. Question to you, what do you think burnout is? And have you ever burnt out? And what happened? And how did you feel when and what did you experience with this burnout? I've mentioned to you that I've experienced burnout before. Yes, Audrey, thank you. It's terrible. It's a very, very difficult place to recover from. It takes a lot of self-care, a lot of self-work. You really got to find this fountain of something that will fill your cup again. Maybe it's time out. Maybe, like I said, cocooning yourself. It's having a duvet day. Switching off your phone. You know, not being you know, looking at social media or anything like that. Just, you know, even when your family has gone, you know, to school and to work, just that quiet space that you can hold for yourself. Absolutely. All right, so it's a term that has been used to describe the physical as well as emotional exhaustion that people may experience. Now, in 2019, the World Health Organization included burnout as an occupational phenomenon. And it defined burnout as a syndrome that's conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not successfully been managed. And it is also characterized by 3 dimensions. So let's take a look. Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. You are just absolutely finished. Exactly, Abong. Feeling exhausted and empty. Very important point that I mentioned here, increased mental distance from one's jobs, one's feelings of negativism and cynicism related to one's job. So you've got an absolute mental distance or a disconnect that happens. And this, of course, reduces our professional efficiency. And burnout refers specifically to the phenomenon in the occupational context, and it should not be applied to describe experiences in other areas of your life. So we are specifically here talking about burnout in the workplace. So understanding compassion fatigue, burnout, and vicarious trauma. So let's take a look. Yes, you will, and yes, Ndive, you will definitely get the slides. Please make sure that I can actually tell you all now. Please find Daniel Zahn. Daniel is my moderator. Please send him your full name and your email address in a direct message. Don't put it in the chat function, please. Just a direct message to him, chat directly, so that you send your email address as well as your full spelling of your name for your certificate, as well as that you indicate you want to receive the recording as well as the PDF with the speaker's notes, instructor's notes as well. So Ndive, if you could just let Daniel know that you want to receive the information. Thank you very much. All right, so vicarious trauma, as we said, is related to concepts such as emotional exhaustion, burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary post-traumatic stress disorder. So now we're going a little bit deeper. We're looking at post-traumatic stress disorder as well. And this can be from how you were raised. It could be from a traumatic event that you have experienced. It could be that yeah, like I said, it's something that you've experienced and you very traumatic that you've experienced. And often these terms are used interchangeably, and it is very useful to understand the nuanced differences, as well as to highlight within the definitions as well as where we can develop a deeper insight into the causational factors and vulnerabilities what we're going to discuss next. So what does this mean? So we've discussed why we think burnout happens, and no, we actually haven't. So why do you think burnout happens? You can use the chat. You can raise your hand and share with me verbally if you want. Why does burnout happen? Another question, why do we allow ourselves to get there? Why does burnout happen? Take another sip. Okay, I see you're still typing, but I'm going to continue. Empathetic engagement is at the core of work with I almost want to say survivors of violence. And it could be violence in any form, because violence has many faces. And Natalie, if you can please send it to Daniel, not to me, I would really appreciate that, because I don't have access to the spreadsheet that Daniel is working on. So if you could just send it to Daniel directly, not to me, please. Yes, toxic environment. We ignore our limits and boundaries. Shanelda, a lack of self-care. Sometimes we don't know it's happening until it's too late. You are so right there. And it's happened to me, and it just, you know, someone very close to me has also experienced burnout recently, and it just creeps up on you, and you just feel, I almost want to say, like an egg that's fallen on the floor, and you're trying to, you know, bring all the egg back together with the shell and everything. It's like a cracked egg. It can be a combination of your own demands, perfectionism, there we go, there's that word I'm looking for, and organizational structures or cultures. Absolutely, we've got this inherent perfectionist way of what we are striving to achieve. And yes, we are ignoring our own emotional needs. And P said, yeah, I think it happens to us when we overthink and we do not recognize our limits, know when to slow down and to rest. Absolutely. Toxic work environments and careless bosses could create burnout, yes, but we are ultimately responsible for our own buffer, as we said. Manzu, please send the message to Daniel, not to me directly, otherwise you will not get the information. I'm unable to send it to Daniel, so kindly, Manzu, send your details to Daniel. Find Daniel on the participants list and send it to him. He's created a spreadsheet for me. All right. So empathetic engagement. So like I said, it's at the core of the being a survivor of violence. And like I said, violence has many faces. It has many you know, we get domestic violence, we get gender-based violence, we get gun violence, we get street violence, we get sexual harassment violence, you know, so you could be a survivor of any of those kind of violences, and therefore it's inevitable that that you will have a persuasive effect on a person's identity. Who am I, you know, in my burnout state? What do I stand for? What are my values? But the constant movement into the stakeholders' worlds, all the stakeholders that we deal with, means that we retreat into our own world with a sense of other people's trauma and other people's distress. So that's why we must be very mindful about empathy. And over time, this constant movement into the stakeholders' world, like I said, means that we're pulling into our own worlds, and over time, this has this cumulative impact on us, and it manifests in the person in both discrete and obvious ways. Discrete, where you keep it to yourself that I'm burnt out and I'm not feeling good and I'm battling to focus, and or there's an obvious way, as you can see, there's a lack of performance. There's this numbness that exists. So vicarious traumatization symptoms resemble that of PTSD. And this could be hyperarousal. So you could be very overstimulated by noise, you know, even visually, if you are looking at the television program or something on social media, it's a hyperarousal of the eyes, and it makes your mind race. And there's also intrusive symptoms, but also it can encompass changes in a person's frame of reference in terms of their identity, their sense of safety, and this ability to trust. You know, you're not sure who you can trust. Your self-esteem goes out the window, and there's this sense of loss of control that you are going through. So let's take a look at the chat function. Toxic partners and relationships too are a great cause of burnout. Absolutely. A toxic home environment, toxic workplace, yes. Double burnout, absolutely. You are so right there, Cecilia. And it's very important that we take note of that, and always, even if we try overlook and we try and stay strong, absolutely. We always do try and stay strong, but it's not always possible. So on the screen, I'm going to give you a very big spreadsheet here. I'm not going to be able to go through everything here. But I want you to, when you get this this information pack, and I'm repeating myself, send your information to Daniel directly, not to me, please. Daniel is creating a spreadsheet with me with the correct spelling of the name and the email address, so that I can share the information with you directly after this training. So you will receive it today, and the recording as soon as the recording has been processed. But the following tables here provide a list of symptoms that can be experienced by someone who has secondary traumatic stress. And it's really essential that we don't underestimate the negative impact of vicarious trauma. Remember that secondary trauma that we're experiencing. And that we treat it with the care and respect we offer to those with PTSD, because there's quite a similarity here. I mean, there's cognitive, there's emotional, there's behavioral, spiritual, interpersonal, physical places where it can be impact, where secondary or vicarious trauma can impact. All right, so you've got the information there. The source is also referenced there. All right, so let's take a look now on the impact of vicarious trauma on professional functioning. So this is where we are in the workplace, and we're specifically talking about the professional environment here. And the extent to which vicarious trauma affects an individual's professional effectiveness is really troubling. Furthermore, it is an important exploration of how this then impacts on an individual's self-concept in relation to questioning their personal and professional competency, as well as their functioning and their potential roles and responsibilities. So with other words, that self-doubt that creeps up. We are going to check in now, you know, in terms of, let me change to the next slide, in terms of the impact of secondary trauma on professional functioning. So here we've got performance of job tasks, the morale, interpersonal relationships, or you know, an interpersonal impact, and well as behavioral impact. Just to mention here, one row here, there can be low motivation. The morale could be dissatisfaction, decrease in the quality of your relationships because you don't have the capacity to build those relationships and to give out of the relationships anymore. Also, faulty judgment. Your judgment is cloudy now. So I want to ask you, can you identify with any or some of these items that are shown above here? Not above, on the screen here. Can you identify with any of this? I certainly can. I had an increase of mistakes. There's apathy. That's a feeling that that you don't actually feel anything. You're numb. You subsume your own needs, so you don't take care of yourself. There's tardiness. You're not sharp. You're not you're not specific and clear on what you are doing. There's tardiness. So I see this, yes, wish I could say no. So saying here, I wish I could say no. Setting perfectionist standards. Here we go. Perfectionism again. The morale, it can be very demoralizing and can lead to staff conflicts. It can lead to overworking ourselves, exhaustion, low motivation, impatience, absolutely. All of those things that stand out. So we all wish we could say no, but there is something here that we can identify with in terms of, secondary traumatic stress or vicarious trauma. So what are the associated risk factors for vicarious trauma? Now, it is important for professional people and all of us as professionals to develop this understanding and insight into the associated risk factors for developing vicarious trauma. And it's upon undertaking such a reflection and an assessment that we can begin to build a more intimate picture of our own individual vulnerabilities. And once we've looked into our own individual vulnerabilities, we can start to build strategies to buffer and to mitigate them. Ndive, if you can just please mute yourself, or Daniel, if you can just mute Ndive, please, because I'm picking up some background noise. Thank you very much. So we're going to look at a diagram here. Now, this offers a list of both risk and protective factors that are associated with vicarious trauma. We've got the individual factors that we've discussed. We've got the organizational factors, and then we've got the life situation factors. What is going on? And in the middle, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in the middle here, your way of being, the way you show up into the world gets impacted. It gets skewed because you are going through trauma, and you may or may not be able to, how should I say, deal with things better or the way you normally would, because you burnt out. You've got the secondary stress, this vicarious stress. You may even have PTSD. So individual factors, which are risk factors here. There could be personal history. So is there a history of personal trauma? Have you maybe experienced gender-based violence or other adverse childhood experiences? There could be social support. What social support or networks are available to you? Are you willing and able to access such as a support group, that we're mentioning here? Spiritual resources. Do you have access to, a personal spiritual resource? It could be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be going to church, a place of worship. Your working style. Do you have too little experience or too much experience to work with, with trauma when you are noticing it within yourself and with other people? And do you draw or do you withdraw from other people during stress? I know I do. I completely go into myself, and I think my friends know that too. When I'm quiet, I'm going through stress. And I retreat, I go back into myself, and I check in with myself. Do I lack any boundaries? Why am I overworking? I'm overextending myself. Why is there a tendency to ignore my own health and self-care? There's a lack of self-care, and there could be a lack of training yourself in terms of self-care and resiliency. Now, in terms of training, I mean something like cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're really learning how to check in with yourself, self-coaching, training yourself to be very mindful of your stress markers, for example. The next one, remember, we've got the 3 circles. We're looking now at the individual protective factors. And this is compassion, satisfaction, self-awareness, seeking support, balance, self-care strategies open to learning, and your personality. So I'm not going to unpack all of these. It's a lot of information, and you will get this, that you can check in deeper into this. But it's important that you take note of the self-awareness, seeking support, and balance. These are 3 things that stand out for me quite robustly. And then the 3rd circle is the current life situation risk factor. Now, your current life circumstances, what is going on in your world? What is the space that you are operating in? Do you have a stressful life event that may have occurred? Is there divorce? Is there debt? Is there, space away from your family? Is there loss of income? What stress and competing needs in your life has accumulated that makes it so challenging to take care of yourself? But while also working effectively and compassionately with others. Such a fine balancing act that exists there in terms of reaching equilibrium there, caring for people, but also caring for yourself, and not letting go of both sides being important. And then organizational risk factors. So for the company or the organization that you work for, or the one that you manage, and you may have people who are going through burnout, etc. Do you work with a top-down hierarchy? Is there little opportunity for people at a lower level to communicate their concerns, or get even just accurate information on priorities and policies? Or influence important decisions? Are your people able to do that? Or is the hierarchy so structured that nobody can reach the decision maker? You do get workplaces that ignore the demanding nature of work, and they do not create a supportive organizational structure. Can you maybe identify that or think about that? Identify something that is related to this. Companies or organizations can fail to provide adequate time off, and they're chronically overworking staff. That is something that you need to ask yourself as well. If you have an organization and you've got people that you are employing, are your people dealing with large number of stakeholders or people, or is there an overload of work? Is there a lack of autonomy over their work? Can they take ownership of their work? Is there a lack of reward and acknowledgement for work that has been done? Is there a lack of communication, or a breakdown in relationship with co-workers, perhaps? Is there an exposure to trauma in terms of the work that you do? All kinds of things. Is there a lack of consistency or predictability? Another one that we can think of, is there conflict between personal values and job requirements? That is a big, for me, has been a big thing, that I have personal values, and then there were job requirements that really conflicted with me, and it's a very difficult place to live in, because a space to live in, because what do you do in a situation like that? Is there no support or for reflective practices? Ask yourself these kinds of questions, and of course you will get the presentation afterwards. I'll send it out today to you, and you can read out this whole list. And you can actually audit yourself, check in with yourself in terms of your organization. What factors or risk factors are we mitigating here? All right. Then organizational protective factors. And I've got a little animation here just to show how everything is connected. All the organizations are connected. This is where their places and their spaces are. Now, organizational protective factors, how can we protect people? This is where workers or people, employees are recognized, they are acknowledged, they feel and they are respected and they're valued. They feel safe. There's the sense of belonging here. There's peer support. There's reflective practice is encouraged. You know, I almost want to say book time in your diary for yourself, even if it's 15 minutes during the day, that you just check in with yourself. How am I going? You know, how am I feeling? Is everything okay? What is not working? Where am I feeling stressed? Pay attention to your stress markers, etc. Do you have consistent, you can have consistent policies and procedures to make, you know, these risk factors, I don't want to say disappear, but easier to manage. And you can also promote feeling of pride, that people should feel proud of where they work, praise the success of achievements. And a nice one is you can encourage storytelling and role playing. I understand, Duth, Mudath, I'm sorry, I understand what you mean, that it's not the same everywhere in the world, but maybe it's something that in your immediate circle that you can try and implement, and even, or maybe even just think for yourself, to yourself, what of these things can I do or can I implement? Okay, so before I start with section 3, I see we do have a few minutes before it is our break time. And I think we're going to break here. I'm not going to start with section 3 now. I want to give you a break, a 10-minute break. So please do take a moment, have coffee, have tea, have water, as Audrey shared with us. Have some water. Come back refreshed. We are in our last stretch. I know 3 hours is a long time. We're in the last stretch, and maybe just reflect a little bit on vicarious trauma and how it maybe lives in your world. All right, see you back in 10 minutes. Just switch off your camera and mute yourself. Enjoy your break. Thank you. All right, if you are back, just show us a thumbs up. Hope you had a good break. And to spice things up a little bit, we are going to go into breakout rooms now to get you to engage into a smaller group. So in this section, we're going to take a deeper look and a deeper understanding of what vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, and trauma is to increase people's knowledge and their ability to identify these signs and risk factors. So let's take a look. All right, so some strategies to support self-care. Now, I want to put you already into a breakout room. I'm going to stop sharing. You're going to be discussing in a breakout group. So if one of my panelists, Cecilia, if you can maybe just type the question in the chat function for me. What strategies can you put together to support self-care? All right. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen. And if you can just give me a moment so that I can go into the breakout rooms. And I'm going to do 5 breakout rooms. And you will automatically and randomly be assigned. So there should be more or less 5 people per room. And I want you to explore what strategies for self-care you can implement. There we go, in the chat function. What strategies can you, for self-care, can you implement? So I'm going to create a room, and I want to do 10 minutes. So a discussion of 10 minutes. Please make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak in your group. And I want you to select one person from your group. You can either volunteer or you can pick someone who will speak on behalf and summarize what you've discussed on behalf of the group when you come back. So be sure that you are ready to speak to everybody in our training group, at our training room in plenary. So just can you show by a show of hands, are you clear on what the exercise is? You can just show me a thumbs up. You are clear what the exercise is. We're going to explore what strategies for self-care we can implement for ourselves. Just can you give me a thumbs up if you are clear on the exercise that we're going to do now? I see, thank you, Shanelda. I see a thumb. Harwan, thank you. Gladys, thank you. I need some more thumbs. I hope you're still actively available here. And if you can, activate your camera within the group. Thank you, Dr. Ramandeep. Great. Okay, I'm going to open the room. I will be hopping into the rooms just to check. But you're going to explore what strategies for self-care you can implement. All right, have a good discussion. And remember, someone of your group needs to come back into plenary and discuss on behalf of the group, or just summarize on behalf of the group what was discussed. Thank you and enjoy.
say something, Cecilia.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good discussion. I hope it got the thinking stimulated. All right, so I want my speakers to please raise your virtual hand so that you can pop to the top of my screen so that I know who will be the speaker. Thank you, Gladys. I see you first. And then my speakers, if you can please activate your cameras, that would be great. Gladys, let's start with you. Your hand came up absolutely first, so let's go with you. What did your group come up with in terms of strategies to put in place for self-care?
Thank you, Cindy. I think our group, we came up with elements that really relate to body, mind, and spirit and how we replenish them in different ways. So one of the elements that came that's related to what you shared, to senses, so smell, touch, feeling, body was like taking bath, shower, and making sure that we use aroma, like things that smell good, to put that in a soothing way and to feel good about ourselves. We also mentioned candles in the same perspective, using strong smells to relax in that sense. We also mentioned sleep hygiene, so how to make sure that we sleep well so that we get better responsive when it comes to stress. We also mentioned spirituality, because for some of us, we are Christians, so it was a very important element to ground ourselves in our being, in our core. And also one element that was really interesting was also the idea of doing nothing. Audrey, you mentioned dolce far niente, and Keith also mentioned that. So it's always thinking about, it's not always about being productive, but self to do nothing, to just enjoy and to be position where we can really center ourselves, I would say. And mention that we cannot have screen time. So making sure that we can take away from the screen again in the sense that we need to just go back to ourselves and ourselves. And one also thing that was also one last thing that was mentioned was about having those moments where we are not reachable. So it's a very good idea of having a free home-free day. So a day where nobody can reach us, so that we can take some time for ourselves and the person. So these are the, oh, and one last thing, because we have Audrey with us who was really keen on water. The idea of swimming that also connected with the body was really important. So the contact with water again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gladys, for sharing. Your audio was a little bit down at some points, but absolutely, you know, take that time to block out time for yourselves. Sometimes it's okay to be scarce and not always be available to everybody. You know, do some somatic work, you know, go swimming, like you were saying, feel the water, really ground yourself in your spirituality again. I absolutely love that. Thank you, Gladys and team. Much appreciated. Cecilia, let's hear from you. You are next.
Yes, thank you so much. I love the sharings from Gladys's group, the issue of unreachable moments. I love that so much. We talked about our members, our team group, we shared, people talked about getting a good support system, people that you can actually reach out to, you trust and you can reach out to, who can help you in moments that can bring you back to your feet, in terms of family members, friends that are of good attitude, of course. We also talked about delegating tasks so that you can reduce burnout and fatigue, not having too much on your head at a time. We talked about thinking and not worrying, because worry is when you cannot solve the problem, but thinking is when you can solve and you're thinking of a way out. So we talked about worry less and think more, doing not paying attention to the things that you cannot handle because you cannot give what you don't have. We also talked about putting yourself first, taking some time during the day to taking some hours to be selfish. That's actually it, thinking about yourself for sometimes. We talked about learning new things, connecting to new ideas, new people, and we also talked about doing what makes you happy, exercise, going to places, sports, or the things that make you happy. And then we talked about, I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, wonderful. I love the idea of being a little bit selfish, taking time for ourselves to replenish and regroup. I think it's a very good idea to do. And it's very needed. Sometimes we just need that quiet space to just not be so overstimulated with everything around us. Thank you so much. All right. Then I've got Audrey, and then I've got Bessie. So first, Audrey.
Sorry, Celia, I got distracted. Are the groups done?
Gladys spoke on my group. Okay, yes. Then Gladys spoke on your group, then you are done. Okay. Thank you. Bessie, let's hear from you.
Okay, sorry. So it's a Saturday, so I'm all nuts. So
don't worry. We are just glad that you've given your time
yes,
for
right.
us. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, so in my team, I think we had a challenge trying to discuss things, but we were just putting it in the chat box. And one of the things that came up was to kind of have like monthly mind maps of what you want to do. And in those monthly, the reason why we do monthly mind maps is so that the routines don't get boring. So it kind of changes every month. And if you need a task to be done, we would have to set very honest timelines, not timelines we just feel we should put in there, but we just need to be very honest to ourselves and put in timelines. We should just do what we love to do. That's something that will also bring us some form of inner joy. And on that note, it will also help us keep self together. And then when tired, just put everything away and sleep. And you should always have, especially if you have kids, you have family to take care of, as a mother or as a wife or even as a woman, just take 15 minutes off every day just to shut yourself in the room. Not sleep, just shut the brains down and let just the air go through that mind of yours. And then you get back and you are recouped. And also try to connect with people. Like someone said, have a support group system and also network with people. Try to reach out to people that you feel they have like same things or something that you feel they can share with you. And in that case, we feel, yeah, just it's a good way to kind of start taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. And you are so right as a mom. And woman, and we've got all these multiple roles that we have to play. Take time for yourself. If you need to have that little nap with your babies if possible, take that time for yourself, recuperate, regenerate. Thank you so much, Bessie, to you and your group.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thanks.
Right.
All right. Then is it Dr. Ramandeep? I see your camera is on. Are you going to speak?
I think if anybody else is not ready, because by the time we had most of the discussion, I got disconnected, and when I joined, we are already discussing this. But yes, I can quickly recap because we discussed, and I think we all had a consensus on few certain things where, how we can work for our self-care. That is, to start with, the time management has to be appropriate, so that first of all, out of the 24 hours, we need to take out some time for ourselves where we can, devote it for the self-care. And another important thing which we all agreed upon was that we really need to understand what is good and what is bad for us. Means what is that something which shuts us off, and what is that good thing which really lifts us. So I think we really need to bring more clarity on this, and for that we need to really understand ourselves. Another important thing was to learn how to say no, because we have to understand. Yeah, we have to understand that threshold where we know that, okay, this is where I need to stop, this is where I need to put a full stop, and I have to say no, because if I go beyond this is going to do something wrong to me. So I think we need to understand that threshold. Exercises, yes, it is important. We need to enjoy good moments, right? We cannot afford to skip the good moments, the peaceful moments, the happiness, because if we skip that, obviously we are moving towards a negative direction again. Planning is also very important. The better the planning is, better time management is, I think that will give us ample of time for self-care, of course. Stay away from toxic people, another important thing, and for that you really have to identify like whom you consider as toxic. And maybe we should,
Absolutely.
yeah, and the last, because I like to stop here because I was noting down everything when we were discussing and then I got disconnected. So probably last thing is that we better not be reactive, super reactive in situations. So we really need to think before we react. So I think this is what we all decided together, and we feel that these can be good strategies for self-care. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for your sharing of the group discussion. I love everything that you said. And yes, learn to say no. Thank you, Cecilia, for putting it here in our chat for us. Yes, enjoy those good moments when they are there, savor them, soak them up. Enjoy even if the smallest moments, it will feed your soul, and that is ultimately what we need. Is there any other group that needs to talk? Nobody else? Perfect. I'm very mindful of time. So I am going to speed up just a little bit in terms of what we have to do. We still have quite a few things that we need to get through, but please, I want to share this information with you via email directly after the training. So if you can please send, if you haven't done so already, please send to Daniel. Find Daniel in the meeting chat. Send directly to him your correct spelling of your name for your certificate, as well as your email address, so that I can send this information through to you, and that we know, because we had 92 registrants and we started with 40 people and we've lost a few people along the way, which is all fine. Thank you for your staying power here. But just, yeah, share your information with Daniel so that I can get this to you. That would be wonderful. All right. So some strategies to support self-care. There's a whole list here that we can go through, but let's take a look at the top self-care, the top 12 self-care tips. The first one is to take stock on what is on your plate. Take stock. Assess the challenges that you are facing in order to know the changes and the improvements that you need to make. You can make a detailed list of the things that demand your time and energy, and make some time for yourself as well. Then start a self-care idea collection. Now, I really like this, and this is almost like creating a vision board for yourself, but either with friends or at work, start making a list of things that you can do to support your self-care. And this could include activities that you do not do right now at this moment, if it's unaffordable, but it is something that you want to do. You're generating those ideas. So it's like a self-care board, that you can do. It could be a 5-minute thing, for example, a really nice long walk, or swimming, or just reconnecting with your faith. Then find time for yourself every day and rebalance your your workload. So assess how you could make time for yourself every day. And it could simply be bringing your favorite cup of coffee to your favorite coffee cup to work, and have a ritual. At lunchtime, maybe you close your door or you listen to music for 10 minutes. If you can, and you're allowed to, and you can have a yoga mat in your office if you have an office. Maybe just go and sit on your yoga mat and have a lunch break, or maybe even in nature. Or even it could be something small, like a 10-minute mindfulness meditation during a quiet time where you can sit and relax. So you can delegate, and delegating is something that came up I think Dr. Ramandeep mentioned it. Learn to ask for help at home and at work. So think to yourself, are there things that you are willing to let go of and let others do their own way? Again, the perfectionist thing. Can we let go and let other people do things their own way? I know for myself, if my husband says he's cooking for the night, I need to step back and let him do it the way he wants to do it and not interfere, and really enjoy and appreciate the moment that, he's taking to cook for the family. Then we can have a transition time from work to home, very important. So reflect on how you can transition between work and home. Do you take a beautiful walk? Do you walk through a beautiful park, or are you maybe stuck in traffic for 2 hours? Do you walk into the door and you've got kids hanging on you, and they're hanging from the curtains, and it's not necessarily a peaceful house that you're walking into. But ask yourself, how could you create a transition process for yourself? You can change your clothes. You can put on cozy clothes when you get home, and mindfully put your work clothes away. And you can even go as far as to say thank you for this day, and thank you for this relaxing time that I've got. Go for a quick run, or just dance with your kids in the living room even. Then learn to say no or to say yes more often. So what do we mean with this? So we know that learning to say no is fraught with self-esteem and other personal issues triggers. So do you think it's a good thing to set limits? Can you think of one thing that you can do or say no to a bit more often? And should you say yes to people offering their help or their assistance? We are so inclined to say, no, I'll do it myself. Again, the perfectionist thing that comes into play, that we think that we're the only ones that can do something, just right. But, also allowing other people to do it, to do something allows for them to grow and to learn maybe a new skill, for example. Very important, assess your trauma points. Now, what does this mean? Start at home. What does your day begin with? Are you watching TV? Are you watching news? Are you listening to radio or the paper? Look at your work. Are you stressed and trauma in a trauma environment, in the environment that you work? Are you in healthcare? Is there a lot of trauma things that you're around, etc.? So it's important to recognize the amount of trauma information that we unconsciously absorb during the course of the day. It could be someone's story, that's something that happened to someone. We're coming back to vicarious trauma. But we can create this trauma filter to protect ourselves. So block out or step away if there's something that's traumatic that's being discussed that, it's just too much for you. It could even mean switching off the news, for a brief moment. And then the eighth tip is learn more about compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma. The more you know about it, the more you can do about it, the better you can act and try and avoid, or if you are in it, deal with it, and you can address the problems. Then consider joining a supervision or peer support group. So it is, of course, very important to be able to access supervision and peer support. And if maybe your workplace doesn't offer it, maybe it's something that you can introduce. where you discuss with people and your teams, you know, the importance of that support group that we have and how we can set one up in the workplace. Then attend professional training or workshops regularly, something like this to just spark your interest. I know LinkedIn Learning has an enormous amount of amazing training that you can go. There's also a free app called EdApp, EDAPP. It's free, it's low bandwidth, with lots of training material on that you can also work through. And it will also, you know, if you're attending these regular professional trainings, that's one of the best ways to help stay renewed and healthy, as opposed to being de-skilled. You know, you're uplifting yourself. So really consider doing that. Maybe consider doing part-time work. You know, maybe a full-time job is not necessarily something that fits into your lifestyle. If it is, you know, it's not for everybody to do part-time work, but, you know, it may be something, if you are having compassion fatigue or vicarious trauma, you know, and if you can afford it, you know, maybe step away, do something part-time that you really care about doing, and that will uplift your spirit. And then the last one is exercise. So physical exercise, of course, is the #1 protective factor of mental and physical ailments. When we do regular exercise, it also, you know, gets the blood flowing, and it's a great way of practicing self-care. So if you've got children, or even if you're just with yourself, I can't think of the name now of the gym that dances. Maybe someone can remember or remind me on the chat with what is it called. But you know, maybe do some dancing, do some free movements, you know, just to a piece of beautiful music, just to get your body moving, and do some stretching exercises if you've been sitting in front of your computer the whole day. And then some strategies for building resilience. Now I'm going to show you a few here. I know we've spoken about it a lot, but here, some 10 ways to build personal resilience. Make those connections. Look for opportunities of self-discovery. You know, read that book. Google something that you've never known about. Like now you've learned about vicarious trauma. Maybe you never knew about it before. Cultivate those good relationships and accept help and support from other people. And in terms of self-discovery, know your strengths and accept your own self-worth. Accept that change is part of living. Learn ways and techniques to manage change. Change is inevitable, and it's the only thing that will always be constant or consistent in the world is change. Thank you. Okay, then take decisive actions to fix problems. Don't let things lie. If there's a problem, use the resolution tool and a technique. So really be mindful about it. Move towards your goals. Someone mentioned mind mapping. Bessie did. Excellent. Use a mind mapping tool. Getting, you know, decisive action, moving towards your goals. Nurturing a positive view of yourself. Tell yourself in the mirror, I'm beautiful, I'm worth it, I'm assertive. Boost your self-esteem. Maintain that hopeful outlook, nurture optimism, enthusiasm. Visualize those goals, just like the athletes do. Visualize those goals. Take care of your body and mind, and pay attention when there are needs and feelings that needs to be met. You know, maybe you do need to go and sleep, and avoid seeing crises as insurmountable problems. You know, don't make a mountain. And how do you move a mountain? One stone at a time. So 8 steps to build professional resiliencies. Accept the change. Change is inevitable. Be a continuous learner. Always be learning. Read books. Listen to podcasts. Take charge of your own self-care and your own life and your own resiliency. Take charge of yourself for yourself. Find your sense of purpose. What is it that you love doing? What is it that sets your heart on fire? Create balance as much as possible. As I said, balance is not always equal. You know, sometimes it's a little bit up, a little bit down on either side, but find a way to create some balance. Cultivate relationships. Build friendships and relationships with people who really matter. Those people who support you unconditionally in everything that you do. People who check in with you, who care about you. Take some time to reflect. Maybe you need to journal. You know, it also fosters new learning, new perspectives of self-awareness, and then reframing skills. You know, reframe how you see things in the world. See yourself in a new way. Make that shift into a new pattern of work, or maybe take a different route to work, for example. And then practice strategies of vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. Like anything else, if we have a framework to help us, we can really better understand what we are doing and why we are doing it. So ask yourself these questions on the screen, and these principles. You know, you can add these principles to a framework. The importance of valuing yourself, that self-awareness and ability to respond to your own needs. Monitor your own self-care. Do we do that? No, we don't check in on ourselves enough, you know, not enough. Maybe we do, but not enough. Develop those rituals that are going to help you, you know, stay grounded, have compassion and empathy for yourself, not just for other people, and then create that supportive network. And then these three things I'm not going to discuss right now. It's the ABC of trauma, but be aware, connect and find balance. So building on the ABC model, look at your relationships, build positive professional relationships through networks and mentoring. Like you've met a whole group of new people, maybe find them on LinkedIn and remain connected. Optimism, maintain that positive outlook in life. Laugh, you know, have optimism, have positive emotions. Emotional intelligence, of course, very important that you understand your own risk and your protective factors. You know, you can have meditative journaling, perhaps. So anything that you can access your emotional strength to assist you in making meaning. There's, you know, spiritual practices we've already discussed, professional structures. You know, is there opportunities to debrief and engage with a reflective practice with a peer? So very much like a coaching style conversation. And then activism. Be an activist for yourself, not just for the other things around, you know, in the world. Be an activist for yourself. And with this, I would love to be, to find out from you. We are 7 minutes ahead of schedule. I would, you know, it would be naive for any person to believe that they are completely resistant to vicarious trauma, compassion, fatigue, and burnout. And in the words of June Jordan, we are the ones we have been waiting for. So with this, I would like to say thank you to you. I'm going to go over to my panel just now, but let me just, if you want to take a screenshot, if you want to reach out to me, please reach out to me if you've got any training needs, if you want to just discuss something. My address, my telephone number, as well as my email address is here. So you are welcome to reach out. You also have my email address because I've sent out the calendar invites. So with this, I would like to ask my panel, last thoughts that you have on our training. What stood out for you? Any lasting words that you may have for the group that stayed with us on self-care and resiliency? Share some of your words of wisdom. Cecilia, let's go to you.
Thank you, Cindy, for the marvelous presentation. I'm so moved by this today because I'm personally getting to burnout because there's a lot on my sleeve. Thank God I know what to do. Again, for us women, our plates are always full, always full. So to me, it's about creating time for, I love this being selfish sometimes. I think we should be selfish. We only think about other people. I think I've learned a lot today, and I hope that participants too have learned. We need to think about ourselves. We cannot give what we don't have. Put yourself first. Think about yourself. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I see Dr. Ramandeep. You are on camera in front of me. Let's go over to you. Some lasting thoughts and some, something that you want to share.
Yeah, because I really feel that it was so good to be a part of this discussion, because it was a kind of recalling everything, that yes, we need time for ourselves. Really need to put self-care as our priority, because we all every time are so concerned and careful about our families, about our jobs, that our self-care always takes a back seat. So I think that's a recall today, and the things have again come back to the surface, and we know what our priorities are. So I think the message for everybody, and for me as well, that we are always going to give priority to self-care, because if we are fit enough, if we are stable, if we are satisfied, I think then only we can give our best to our family and near and dear ones. So I think it's directly related, and it was entirely my pleasure to be here talking to everybody, listening from you, Cindy, and as usual, you were wonderful. And I look forward to such sessions, because I think we all had, a best utilization of this weekend this ways. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your feedback. Bestie, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, Cindy. So I just want to give some form of testimony on this your course. So it came really like timely for me when I saw it on LinkedIn, because I think I was burning out. I was just kind of tired. I felt tired. I mean, with 3 kids, a husband, a workload on me. So I really, really felt so out of place. And I needed even someone to talk to, but who would it be? But when I saw this course, I said, let me take this course first, this training first. And I really want to thank you for giving this to us as women who are just off. And I'm really, and kind of, I know that I'm going to just get right back in place. And I'm really, really thankful. And again, I think it's also okay to cry sometimes. If you need to cry, you cry it out, but then quickly also put yourself together and move forward. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Bessie. And I'm so glad that this came timeously for you. And we really hope that we will be doing things like this again in future. So do keep an eye out on LinkedIn. I had Dr. Hawa.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to say thank you to you for your idea of putting together an event. And then I myself and Megan took it and we ran with it and created something with your help, with your input. Thank you so much for your great idea. So we can all say thank you to you because without your idea, we would never have sat here today. So thank you.
It's okay. Thank you. And thanks a lot, Cindy, for such a wonderful kind of, very timely kind of a workshop and an event where we could discuss a lot of things which are quite personal. Like, like where I was listening to Dr. Ramandeep, what she said was, and you need to take care of yourself first. Without that, you will not be able to support anything or anyone else. The thing is, specifically during COVID time, like I'm from a healthcare professional. So the thing is, when you spoke about vicarious trauma or compassion fatigue, that is what I went through. I have been through that, when we were like 2 a.m. messages, 3 a.m. messages from friends, like, what to do, how to go about things like that, But then when I'm listening to what you spoke today, like, there is a point wherein you have to say, okay, this is as much I can do. I need to take care of myself. So something kind of a very important thing which I will take back from your training today. Like, you cannot just go on and on and on and on, but you need to, like, take care of yourself also. Thanks a lot. And it was a wonderful training, and I loved being there today and loved listening to everyone's views. It was quite nice. Thanks a lot. And thanks to Megan too.
Yes, thank you to Megan, who did all our social media pro bono. So really, we pulled together. And thank you, Daniel, for being on behind the scenes for us today, making sure that everything is connected and everyone's in and everything is running smoothly. So thank you to that. I think Audrey, I think your camera is on. You've got something that you would like to add. Thank you so much.
So, first is first. I don't know how it skipped. I think because her camera went on. Did anyone notice Hawa's plants behind her? Like,
yes, it's so beautiful.
So nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's something I've been meaning to get into, to be a plant mom, but I don't know why I haven't just. So maybe that should be our next session. Maybe you need to guide us on what kind of plants to get, indoor plants, those kind of things. I think is one of the most nurturing things to do. You want to
Maybe,
respond,
but this
Hawa?
is another form of self-care. Like, when you are
Yes,
kind of, there is
it
too much happening, like you just take time off and just take care of something else other than your daily routine. So it's a form of self-care.
I really want to do that. So anyway, my last words really is, one of the things I advocate for, besides my 9 to 5, I advocate for cervical cancer. And while I do that, one of the things I realize is that women, we've been cultured and we've been brought up to carry so much pain. We've been brought up to take care of others instead of ourselves. The thing I tell every woman is, you were not born to suffer. You were not born to carry unnecessary pain. You were not even born to carry the pain you feel in your body. So the moment you feel uncomfortable, it means there's something that you need to do.
Absolutely.
However, even if it's period pain, even if it's headache, there is a solution to it. All you need to do is to find out how to go about it. We are not, by nature, by God's design, not to carry pain. Society did that on us, and sometimes we project it on another woman as a woman ourselves. So it's important that we always work to uplift. We always work to lighten the burden of others. We always work towards lightening the body of ourselves. It's in that journey that self-awareness comes. Everybody that is on this call or that has spoken at one point, either in the groups or here, it means you are already on that journey of self-care. And only people that are on that journey can understand this language. There are some people you will have this conversation with, they cannot connect because they're not on the self-care journey. So it's a journey and you can never arrive, but you have to continue. I experienced burnout in 2017 when I was working and doing my master's. Trust me, my skin was the opposite of what you're saying now. And since then till now, since 2018 to 2023, I haven't fully recovered because I allowed myself to run dry of my battery, that you can never really get to that optimum point again. That is why it's called burnout. It means that a new lifestyle has to occur to continue to get back, but it's hard to get back to the way you were before burnout. That's why it's called burnout, because you're actually burnt out. So you have to prevent yourself from getting to that point. It's very, very important. And doing this event as we are is part of that journey, because it's part of the reading, it's part of education, it's part of identifying what triggers you, it's part of identifying your traumas, the vicarious traumas. Those are very important. In fact, that was what swimming helped me identify, that I had a vicarious trauma, that swimming was the only thing to help me come over it. I didn't know that was what doing, but at the same time, I found out that swimming centers me as well. To being in the body of water, standing under my shower, even when I finish, soaping up my body, drinking water. Water is powerful. If you do any research about water, it is powerful. Yes, self-love, Amuda, self-love, like hug your body. Be naked in front of your mirror and tell yourself, I love you. I love what I'm seeing. It's called the mirror manifestation or something like that. I have a huge 6 feet mirror in my house. It's important to show love. There are different ways to show love to yourself. You need to find it. The journey, it never ends, to be honest. I will recommend a few things here, resources that I've used to go through my journey. Number one is Oprah Winfrey, The Path Made Clear. It's a book. You can get the audio version as well. The Path Made Clear. Very, very important. Then Thrive by Harriana Huffington, the founder of Huffington Post. She has a podcast as well about, you know, different, the book. It has a book and it has the audio version as well. Those are two real books that has really impacted and has validated my journey of self-care. So thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out. I have a lot of resources and I love to share information, and I will share as many as possible with you all.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being so passionate when you speak about this course of self-care. And I, all of us in this room, I believe, share the same passion and interest in self-care, because maybe somewhere along the line we've burnt out. Okay, so it's 1:05. I don't want to take too much more of your time. From my side, thank you so much for attending this pro bono workshop. I would really appreciate if you can just pop me something in the email or in the chat function, maybe on the email, just to tell me, you know, something that stood out for you, something that you take with you. And, you know, it's important also for me to learn and to grow and to get some feedback. So please feel free to give feedback. And with that, I say thank you to all of you. Do take care of yourself. And lots of love to you all from around the world. And let us go forward in love and light and self-care. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.